I'm getting ready to introduce a great friend of mine, a dear brother, a personal road dog. We've been through a lot the last 5.5, 6 years together, became best friends. But he depicts that statement, that transformation happens when your vision is greater than your pain. You see, Rob won't tell you, but he's actually had to sleep on a couch for the last year. He won't tell you that he's been driving someone's car for the last 2 years. He won't tell you that he budgets his monthly budget under $1,500 a month. He survives off of that. He won't tell you the sacrifices that he does every day. You see, transformation, not just within your life, but in other people's lives, happens when your vision is greater than your pain. He won't tell you the hard times, the lonely times, the times where he wanted to throw in the towel. I'm getting ready to read his bio here in a second. But knowing how I've walked beside him, I had the comfort of having a job. Well, he literally walked by faith every day, and he believed that something great was going to happen through City Fam. I remember he went all in, and he's been going all in for the last 5 years towards this vision. When Lori coached him and said, "You can have this life," he says, "I can have that life." He goes, "I'm going to do everything I can to get to where I need to go." Stop drinking, stop doing whatever was holding him back. He's been living out his vision every day. When I'm saying every day, I'm not saying, 3 hours at a day. I'm saying 12 to 16 hours a day. He lives, breathes, eats, sleeps City Fam. And those that live in Baltimore and that are around him can testify that's what he's all about, is seeing lives changed. And he's just a great friend of mine. He challenges me in so many different ways. I'm going to read his bio. So Rob Kowalski is a self-proclaimed, reformed bad boy. Once the biggest stripper and nightclub promoter. In his hometown in Baltimore, Maryland, he had a radical, life-changing encounter with Jesus and turned his life around. Rob's life of excess taught him many lessons, and his mess has become his message. He's the CEO and founder of City Fam, a Baltimore-based nonprofit organization that advocates for the power of community to transform individuals, cities, and even the world. He's the author of Why Waiting Works, How Fast Sex Prevents Us from Finding True Love and Long-Term Happiness. Can we just give it up for Mr. Rob Kowalski as he steps forward? A friend, a brother, a true transformer. Love you, brother. I can find you a marker.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Let's give it up for Bill. Thank you guys for coming, for investing your weekend to be here. It's really awesome, really humbling, to be honest, to hear about people from all over the country, even other countries. It's crazy. But this was a dream of mine and Lori's, actually, probably early on. 6 years ago, we would dream about, coaching big groups of people and really helping them find a vision for their life back when we were on Holabird Avenue in Dundalk. If anybody's from Maryland, you know where it's at. It was a long time ago. So this is really, really cool to have this come to fruition. And I really just wanted to kind of share my testimony, I guess, for lack of a better term. Lori asked me to tell you about it, my story, because I think it's easy to see the highlight now, but it's better, to hear the origin, because it might look like I have it all together and, I got it going on, but there was a long time that I didn't. So kind of just want to give you my background a little bit. I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes, and I want to share really what City Fam is, the heart behind it, and kind of how we came up with it. So I was born and raised in Baltimore. My mom was got pregnant with me at the age of 14 years old. her and my dad actually did get married, but didn't last long. Surprise, surprise, I say. But my grandmother raised me till I was about 4 or 5 years old, and my mom took custody of me back over, I guess, when she was about 19 years old. And my dad was never in the picture. He was never in the same state as me. Never paid child support, so I really didn't have much of a relationship with him. And you know, my mom was working. You know, she had an 8th grade education, so she was kind of just trying to pay the bills. Was a waitress mostly. And I just ran the streets a lot, raised myself, taught myself how to be a man. And you know, from the time I pretty much hit puberty, I just kind of learned from television and movies, you know, what a man was supposed to act like, or at least what I thought he was supposed to act like. And I thought if I could sleep with a lot of women, that it validated me. And you know, I remember when I was about 14 or 15 years old, I found a videotape that my mom and her friends had rented of some male strippers, and I popped it in the VCR, and I watched it, and I was like, I didn't even know that existed, but I thought, that's what I want to do for a living. So from the time I was 14 or 15 years old, I think it's funny now, but I wanted to be a stripper. That was my, you know, I remember it distinctly, and I told my friends about it. So when I was 19 years old, my 5-year dream of becoming a male stripper became true, and I started dancing. I started working for all the entertainment agencies in Baltimore. Was working with a review group, you know, and it was, I guess I was, like I said, 19, and for about 8 years I did that. I became the most, you know, the busiest stripper in Baltimore. You know, like I worked for every entertainment agency. I was in the phone book, and life was a party. You know, it was everything that you think it. You know, if anyone's seen Magic Mike, y'all shouldn't have seen Magic Mike if you did, but if anybody did, it was like that. But I kind of became I transitioned to that, promoting nightclubs in Baltimore, and that just increased the debauchery. And you know, when I didn't really think much about God, to be honest. I had limited exposure to him when I was younger. My uncle put me in a couple Christian schools, which I got expelled from. But thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Can you all hear me better now? Yeah. Okay. So, but when I was 27 years old, I was in Cancun, Mexico, with a group of about 15 friends, and God called me. It was the first time I heard God's voice in my life. First time I felt His presence, and I heard it, and He said He had a plan for my life, and He asked me to trust Him and to follow Him, which I did. And I did the most radical 180 a person could do from that point on. I quit stripping, I quit promoting, I broke up with my girlfriend, you know, that I'd been having sex with. I cut off all my friends, and I started going to church on Sunday. And what makes my story different, I always have to share, is when God called me, He told me that He had a girl for a wife for me. He told me who she was, actually. It was a girl who lived in California that I knew, that I never really thought of that way. I mean, I thought she was pretty, but that was about it. And but He told me that, you know, this is your soulmate. And I tried to contact her. She didn't reciprocate. So I thought, okay, well, if this is God, you know, He'll make it happen, because, you know, everything that I read about Him, He knows the end from the beginning. So I said, I'll wait. And I thought it would happen fast, to be honest. I thought it was going to be a couple weeks, maybe a month or two. And I remember praying. I said, God, I said, okay, I'll wait. I mean, because I had a lot of sex before that. If anybody, some of y'all, Ginny knew me back then. But I was like, I'll wait. I said, God, but you better hurry, because, you know, I can't wait long. And I waited, and it turned into 6 years. And it was the loneliest 6 years of my life. I would, you know, went to church on Sundays, and, you know, the other 6.5 days a week, besides work, I didn't really do much else, because I was dying. I started to die, like, quickly. Within a couple of weeks, I was, like, really lonely. I went from having a very active social life to having nothing to do on the weekends and no one to do it with. And I was like, all right, where do the cool Christians hang out, right? Because that's what I was trying to find them. And so I started, and I went to some Christian coffee houses, and there was just nothing out there. And so I ended up just kind of going to the movies, you know, on the weekends, and trying to avoid trouble. That was my strategy. I'm like, I'm just going to try to avoid sin, because eventually He's going to bring her to me, and that will solve this problem. So after about 6 years, I was starting to run out of gas, but my determination was starting to wear off. And I've been abstinent that whole time, sheltering myself from the world for the most part. And I had this idea, though, because I started to see my old friends' lives starting to fall apart from the bad decisions that I was making previously also. but their lives were starting to fall apart. And meanwhile, you know, I'm trying to get them to get sober, or go to recovery, or come to church with me, because I feel like that was what they needed. But I could not get them to come for the life of me. And here I was the leader of the pack. You know, when God called me, I was the guy that, you know, pretty much said, I was the promoter. So I was the one that was saying, okay, we're partying here this night, and you know, pretty much people came, and I could not get them to come to those places. And so I thought, I prayed a lot about it, and I'm sorry if you guys aren't believers, but I can't help not talk about God, because he's such an integral part of the story. But I really felt led back into the club scene. Like God was giving me the green light to go back to promoting, which was shocking to me, because I didn't think that I'd ever do it again. And I got back into it. I started promoting. It was summer of 2006. So I'd been out of the scene for 6 years. Nobody even really knew who I was anymore when I got back into it. But I had the hottest, like within about 3 months, I literally took over the nightlife scene in Baltimore. And I had the hottest club in the city on Saturday nights. It was a place called Casbah. Some of y'all might remember it. But on Thursday nights, I had a small group in the nightclub, and we were reading Purpose-Driven Life. And we would go out to Homeless Park, and we would feed the homeless people after the small group. And anybody that came to the small group on Thursday, I would let in for free to the nightclub on Saturday. Didn't make them wait in line, treat them like VIP, and it was awesome. And all of a sudden, my small group blew up. It went from like 8 people to like 50 people. And I had drug dealers and strippers coming to my small group, and I was like, this is awesome, these are my people. And, but it was so edgy. It was right when I met Lori and Pastor Chris. I just started going to church, and it was so edgy though, and because I didn't have good accountability, and I hadn't set good boundaries, it sucked me in. I slept with a girl. I was still drinking at the time. I slept with a girl. I broke my 6-year streak. And then once I lost that badge, because it was a badge of almost like it was pride. Once I lost that, it became easier to make mistakes. So about a month later, I slept with a second girl, and some people in my group found out about it, and they judged me fairly, pretty harshly, and rightfully so. So I stepped down from leadership, and once I did that, it was like stepping back into the shadows, and my life started to spiral. Because here I was now, I was the biggest promoter in the city again. I was making all this money. I was popular. It was like the perfect storm, came together, and the devil got me. And I just, for the most part, over the next 5 years, I ended up right back to where I was when I started, before I met the Lord, except now I just was really guilty, because I knew I was wrong, and he was disappointed in me. So it was toward the end of 2011, my dad got diagnosed with cancer, and through a series of events, God brought me to my knees, and I rededicated my life to him, and that's when I started meeting with Lori. And it, as unnatural as it felt for me to go back to that life, because I had tried, I'd given it everything I had to be a good Christian boy, and I couldn't do it, but it was better than the alternative, because I had made such a mess. And I just didn't like the way that I felt about myself. So I rededicated, and Lori and I remember she offered to coach me. She said, let's meet up and, life coaching or whatever. And I remember how cynical I was driving to that first meeting, because I was like, what's a life coach? What is this? This is going to be a waste of time. I thought that. I was like, this is going to be a waste. So I got there, and she told me about the 6 areas of my life, and she broke it down for me, and she asked me several questions for each area of my life, and I answered them honestly. And the next time we got together, she said, I want you to close your eyes. And she said, this is your vision statement. And she read it to me. I think I have it with me. And she read it to me, and it was the most perfect life, because it was based on my answers, but it was the most perfect life that you could imagine for me. And it was almost too good to be true. It was just like, I don't know if that could actually happen. But she helped me believe it enough that I said, if it's even possible, I'll do anything to get there. So I quit drinking a few months later. I broke up with my girlfriend not long after that, so I could be abstinent. I quit promoting, which was my only source of livelihood. And I did everything basically that I could, and I have been ever since for the last 6 years. I don't even look at my notes, but I really want to share. I want to share the ladder of City Fam and kind of where that came from. But I guess the point that I really wanted to make was if you look at my life, you know, first when I started coaching, when I discovered the vision for my life, I was an alcoholic at the time. I was a Christian. I was just very backslidden, but I was an alcoholic. I was using drugs. I was probably a sex addict. I was an old promoter, which is really bad. You know what I mean? Too old to be doing it. No idea what I was going to do with my life or my future. You know, I had some vague ideas, but the vision is what pushed me through. It's like Billy said, it pushed me through all the pain, and that's why I'm really excited about this weekend, because I know that each one of you here has been created for a purpose, and when you find it, it's gonna change your life, and it's gonna change the lives of the people that are around you. So when we started City Fam, we kind of had this idea, and this is pretty much what we operate by. It's the ladder. So what we believe is, we put fulfillment at the top, that everybody wants to get to this point. Everybody wants to wake up excited to get out of bed, living their best life now, right? What we believe is that you don't get there without this, community. It's impossible for you to reach your full potential unless you have a group of people around you to inspire you, encourage you, and support you. Because if you don't, sooner or later you'll run out of gas, like I did. You know, I white knuckled it for 6 years. I was the most promiscuous person I knew, to no sex for 6 years. Like, that's a hell of a lot of determination. Like, thank you. So you have to have that cheering section. You got to have a group of people around you just to do life with, okay? The way that we see it is, well, first off, everybody wants to be here. Everybody wants to reach their full potential. And it takes healthy community, not just community, but it takes healthy community, people that bring out the best in you. We believe that, you know, the way it exists now is this is what we ask people to do. We ask people to take this huge first step. Churches are the worst people with this. We're like, hey, and that was the same thing for me. I was trying to get my friends to come to church so they could become better versions of themselves. But it's too big of a step for people. A lot of times it's too big of a step for people to get sober and go to recovery. Nobody gets sober until shit falls apart, you know what I mean? Like, or you're court ordered. And that's a terrible strategy, to wait till you hit rock bottom. People don't go to church till they're in crisis a lot of times. So what at City Fam we did, we said, let's do this. Let's just meet people where they're at. Let's do something social. Let's do something fun together. We call it Fun Without Regret. And then let's follow it up with service. Because when I rededicated my life in 2011, and I started meeting with Lori, I was staying home alone every night by myself. I was renting Redbox movies. Now, if I wasn't committed to waiting, my story would be completely different, because I would have Netflix and chilled, right? I would have called up a girl, I would have got on Tinder or whatever, and I would have had sex. You know, if I would have spent time alone with a girl, I knew that would happen, so that wasn't an option for me. And that's what people do when they hit that point of loneliness, is they date out of loneliness, and then they end up having sex, and then they get a baby's mama or a baby daddy, or they get broken, you know, somebody leaves them, and it's this cycle. So it's a bad strategy if you're dating out of loneliness. So it takes community to make it through that wilderness period, right? Because God wants to take you through a process before he brings you into your promised land, because he wants to prepare you for it. But you can't get through the wilderness by yourself. You know, I talk about it in one of the videos I made about the truth about sex. Is like, if you look at wagon trains back in, you know, the 1800s, like when people wanted to cross the country, they didn't try to go alone. They wanted a wagon train because it was safer, and it was probably a lot more enjoyable to cross the country with some people. It's the same way with this. You got to go through a process. You're going to have to, you know, go through some ups and downs, an emotional roller coaster. And if you don't have a group of people, you ain't making it. But the thing is like, you know, people don't go to seek out these healthy communities typically until, like I said, until things hit rock bottom. And sometimes they never get to that point. Sometimes they just kind of teeter along the bottom, and they never hit their full. They never, you know, really touch down to the point where, like, I need to quit doing drugs, or I need to stop bouncing from relationship to relationship. So what we do is we started doing social events. and that really started out as just selfish reasons because, like I said, I was renting. And what we realized was like, this is easy. Like I said, it's easy to get this person let's just say it's a lot easier to get them to a social event than it is to get them here, whatever here is. Maybe it's recovery, maybe it's church, whatever healthy you identify as a healthy community. It's a lot harder to get them to those places. But these people that are members of this community are living their life, they're bored also. They're renting Dolphin Tail on the weekends. So if you start organizing fun events, fun without regret, they'll come down. And this is where the magic happens. When those two people meet, because you know what they always say when they come to City Fam events? Man, everybody's so nice. Because like Billy and I talk about, the culture of a healthy community is what can I do for you, right? The culture of what they're used to is what can I get from you. So when they feel that, it's like, man, that's refreshing. That feels good. I want more of that. And we're like, yeah, everybody is really nice. Guess what we're doing next week? We're going to go feed some homeless people. You want to come? They're like, man, I've always wanted to do something like that. I just didn't know how to get started. And they take another step. And by the time they get up here, they start feeling different about themselves. They made some healthy friendships. They have something to do on Friday night besides the wrong thing. And you see them walk right up the ladder. And they get off of drugs. They quit. They break up with that crappy boyfriend or girlfriend. They leave that dead-end job to pursue a dream because now they see other people that are going after it. But that's the magic. It's community. It just changes people. And it makes the process of becoming the best version of yourself so much easier and so much more enjoyable. So that's really what City Fam is. That's our heart behind it. And I'm going to wrap it up here in a second. I guess the one point I really wanted to leave you with is just, trust God. Because there were so many times that when I was going through this that I didn't understand what was going on. The first 6 years, I was so lonely and like I felt like an alien in the world, but I just kept trusting him. I just kept him in first place, and I was like, he knows something that I don't. So even if you're not a believer here, trust that voice inside, because that's how he speaks to you. It's that gut instinct, what feels right. Not your head or what you think, or your heart even, because that'll lie to you, but your gut. So I don't think just because you don't believe in God that he stops communicating with you. I still think that he leads you. But I would just say continue to trust him, because that to me is the greatest gift that you can give him. It's really the only thing that you can hold back is the trust. But when you give that to him, he'll honor it, and he'll write a beautiful story with your life, regardless of where you were, because I'm living proof. So thank you all for being here.
Let's give it up for Mr. Rob Kowalski one more time. Woo!